Hi, my name is Olive Sweetman. I'm a lecturer in economics, and the purpose of this presentation is to provide kind of a general overview about economics. Studying economics at Maynooth, you can take economics as an art subject, either as a single honours, which in the final 2 years you would just study economics, or as a double honours where you take economics and another art subject. You can also study economics in the International Finance and Economics degree. And in that case, you would study economics and finance and either a language or computer science. And in the third year of your 4-year degree, you would either have an internship or study abroad. And the BA Finance, in the BA Finance, you will also study economics with this degree. The MH502 Law with Arts, you can take economics as an art subject with BCL. And Gavin, one of our students, which I profile later on, actually had taken that option. We're very excited about a new programme that's coming on stream in autumn 2022, so next year, not for this year's entrance. It's MH415, so it's a BSc in economics. So this is a designated entry programme that's aimed at students with a strong quantitative background. We've kind of asked employers what kind of skills are important in the labour market, and this course focuses heavily on key skills as identified by the employers. We've recently set up a postgraduate alumni network from our former students, and a number of those have volunteered to act as mentors. So we're hoping to link in with our students from this programme in with the postgraduate alumni network. This is a 3-year degree, but if you receive the required grades, you will be automatically accepted into the MSc in economics. So there's an option of taking a 4th year and then having a master's in economics at the end of those 4 years. So looking ahead to the plan of the talk, I'm going to discuss what economics is, what type of careers do our graduates enter. I'm going to discuss some recent research in economics and address some questions that previous students have asked at Open Day. And finally, at the end of the talk, we will profile some of our recent graduates. So I suppose if you ask people what economics is about, some people would say it's about banking or taxes or inflation, and it is about all of those, but it's actually a bit broader. And what we would say, economics is about choice and the impact our choices have on each other. So it relates to a lot of different aspects of our lives, from decisions made by individuals, whether they're workers or consumers, families or firms, to policies formulated by government. Economists are not defined by the subject matter that they study, but rather by the way they approach a given topic. And below I have some that will be more obvious topics and maybe less obvious topics. So international trade, maybe questions we might think of is how does a country benefit from trade? And a related question is what are the likely economic impacts of Brexit, which might impact trade? If we look at regulation, we see the importance of effective regulation in the wake of the financial crisis. In general, when we have few firms operating in an industry, it may be important to regulate them to protect consumers from very high prices. We teach a module in the economics of sport. This might look at issues like negotiation of TV rights, how ticket prices are set, and the design of players' contracts, how players are paid. We have just started a new module on the economics of crime. So this might address issues like looking at the impact of criminal activity, the economic impact of criminal activity, looking at the market for illegal drugs, and looking at, for instance, privatization of prisons, which is an issue in the US. These are some economic questions, and the first one is, why does a government tax high sugar drinks? Well, I think it's well known that excessive consumption of sugar can have adverse health effects. And the purpose of this tax is not really to raise revenue, but more to reduce consumption of these drinks. So the main aim is that the tax will increase the price and that will reduce consumption. Actually, manufacturers have also responded to this by producing more low sugar drinks which are not subject to the tax. The next question is a question posed by Alan Kruger in a paper called "Why Did the Price of Concert Tickets Rise?" And he noticed that the price of concert tickets rose considerably after the mid-1990s. So Performers normally make their money from selling their albums, selling their music, and also performing in concerts. But of course, recently with digital download, they're not making as much money from selling their music. So in the past, the concerts were often used as a way of advertising their albums, where now they're the main source of revenue, and hence the price has risen. The next question is, should a country host the Olympics? And this is a question posed in a paper called Going for Gold, the Economics of the Olympics. And the authors conclude that hosting an Olympics is a very poor investment for a country. There are very high cost infrastructure and other costs involved in hosting an Olympics, and this is not matched by the increase in revenue. And the last question is, a very broad question really, how should the government design policies to tackle climate change? And this is something that economists would be involved in as well. So for instance, the government might use subsidies to promote more environmentally friendly activities and tax those activities that lead to high greenhouse gas emissions. So the skills acquired by economics graduates equip them for a wide variety of careers. Some of these include ones in economic research. For instance, a number of our students have gone to work in the Economic and Social Research Institute, which you may have heard of. Work in regulation, for instance, the central bank. In banking, some of them have teaching and would go into public policy. More recently, PhD economists have started to play an increasingly central role in tech companies. So major companies like those listed have hired teams of PhD economists. In fact, Susan Athey, who's quite a famous economist from Stanford, was working in Microsoft as one of the chief economists. And this paper that I've highlighted here discusses this issue. And according to the researchers in the paper that I cited earlier, successful digital economists share three broad skill sets. The ability to work with data, to assess and interpret relationships, the ability to understand and design markets and incentives, and the ability to understand industry structure and equilibrium and strategic behaviour by firms. And these skills would be taught to economics students. In the next few slides, I'm going to discuss two pieces of research. So my first piece of literature looks at the importance of role models in the labour market. And we're all kind of familiar with the saying, you can't be what you can't see. And the second quote is a quote from Rachel Blackmore, the jockey, where this is her advice for young girls who want to be jockeys. And of course, Rachel has been a role model, setting many records this year, being the first woman to win the champion hurdle in Cheltenham. Also was the top jockey in Cheltenham, as well as being the first woman to win the Grand National. So the particular paper that I'm focusing on today looks at the effect of same gender and same race role models on occupational choice. And this research is conducted at West Point, which is the military academy in the US. So the authors found that women and racial minorities have traditionally been underrepresented in certain branches in the army. And this disparity seems to persist or exacerbate sometimes over time. So what they wanted to look at is, were role models important? And it was important to have more senior people in the army that would be role models for people coming up. So they used random assignment of role models to cadets at the United States Military Academy at West Point to investigate the effect of a same gender or race mentor on occupational choice in the United States Army. The authors find that when a female cadet is assigned a female senior officer, that the cadet is much more likely to pick that particular officer's branch as her first or among her top three preferences. And they find similar results for race. So the authors conclude that these results show that having a gender or race mentor may influence the occupational choice of women or racial minorities. And if you want to read a little bit more about it or see a little bit more, there's kind of a non-technical discussion in the link below. The next paper evaluates a policy that was introduced in New York City to reduce crime. And this might be something we would discuss in the Economics of Crime module. So the cost of crime to victims and taxpayers has been well documented. An economist at the University of Chicago worked with officials from New York City, and they conducted an experiment to see what kind of impact increased LED street lighting could have on crime. So 80 housing developments with high crime rates were chosen for the experiment. And these housing developments were divided into two groups. Group 1 was giving increased lighting, which we would call the treatment group, and Group 2's lighting remained unchanged, which we call the control group. So crime statistics were compared for the treatment and the control groups before and after the intervention. The researchers concluded that the introduction of extra street lighting reduced outdoor nighttime crimes by at least 36%. So it was a very successful initiative. And in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, because obviously it costs money to put in lighting, but it also costs a lot of money to the city when there's a lot of crime. But this was actually overall was worth an additional $770,000 to the community per year. And again, if you're more interested in this, there's a link which again discusses kind of a non-technical, this in non-technical detail. And these are some questions that previous students have asked me on open day, so I'm just going to pose them and try to answer them now. First one is, do I have to have studied economics or business for the Leaving Cert? The answer to that is no. We will teach you what you need to know for this degree. The second question sometimes people ask is, do I have to be good at maths? And I'll be a little more nuanced in how I answer that. If maths is something you hated and you wanted to sort of get rid of your maths books as soon as you finished your Leaving Cert or equivalent exams, then maybe this is not the subject for you. You will be have to do some maths in this degree. However, we will teach you what you need to know. So if you're willing to learn it, then you should be okay. You don't need to have honours maths, for instance. Another question sometimes people ask me is, what subject should I combine with economics? And largely that's up to you, as long as it fits in with the university timetable. So we would kind of encourage you to go to different lectures and see what subjects that you like. We would recommend, I suppose, maths is a good combination, really. There's a law with arts degree, and you could take economics with law. Gavin is one of our students we profile later on who does that. People sometimes like to combine it with business subjects, accounting or business. But also lots of other subjects like history, geography, sociology is quite popular, English. So really, it is up to you as to what you would like to combine it with. We asked some of our students, past and present, to tell you a little bit about economics at Maynooth. So you can hear from them in the video below and also in the next few slides. At the end of the presentation, there's a link to our website where you'll find answers to other questions that you might have. I wish you well in your future studies, and of course, we hope that you choose Maynooth and we see you in the next academic year. But I'll give the final word to our students. Thank you.